Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Shout out to another fallen soldier. Condolences to the family of James Cook, R.I.P. First man to put an L on Michael Watson's record. Former European and British super middleweight champion. For all comers, duck nobody, duck no smoke. You know, he fought in an era where a lot of British fighters had to fight abroad. James ended up fighting in Paris, Holland, Germany, Finland, and was often brought over there as the opponent, although he caused his fair share of upsets. The biggest probably when he took the European title, the vacant European title, knocking out Pierre-Frank Winterstein in Paris. It was 51-1. I remember watching him beat Mark Kaler at the York Hall, defending that super middleweight title, being it was in the East End. Kaler was from West Ham. It was full of Mark Kaler supporters, and that in itself leads to a tense atmosphere, let's just say that. After he lost to Harold Graham, he beat Errol Christie, Brian Schumacher, Sam Story, Pierre-Frank Winterstein, Mark Kaler, avenged the loss to Tamo. But that was actually a brilliant run. We can't forget all the work he done at the Pedro Youth Club in Hackney. And he went on to co-train Anthony Yard alongside Tunde. I always wanted to interview him, but that never came off. But we ain't forgot you, bruh. We ain't forgot you. R.I.P.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
You know, people used to give Mayweather slack for running. No, he was boxing because there was moments where he'd step out of range and then he actually started walking you down. Even Pernell Whitaker, if you look on back in the day, there's many moments where Whitaker starts walking you down because he's playing a psychology role. He's not a pressure fighter, but he's looking to mentally push you back so that he gets rest a little bit when you feel under pressure, under duress. Shakur Stevenson does the same thing. He's not a runner. He'll box you on the outside. He'll move when he needs to, but he holds his position, and sometimes he'll walk you down in spots. He doesn't necessarily walk you down to make contact. Sometimes he'll walk you down just to give you the impression that you need to step back, and that also allows him to dictate the pace a little bit. And then he'll step back, step in, whatever. That's boxing.
See, Paulie made a defense of Mayweather and Shakur, and he went through all the technical breakdown of why they're not runners. Now, Paulie is defending that style because it's not dissimilar to how he used to box. Let's get that straight. Robert Garcia, in response to Paulie Malignaggi, said that Shakur versus De Los Santos was really bad. But here's the thing. You can't compare Shakur to a blatant cherry pick and what was supposed to be a sacrificial lamb in William Skull. You can't compare the two. Shakur has climbed to the top of the 3 weight classes where he's held world titles. William Skull hasn't did that. They're dumping the Canelo shit show all on William Skull. The fights you're saying Shakur is boring in, he's winning them convincingly. He's a free-weight world champion, and he's relatively popular. He's earned his slot. They can say they don't want Cepeda or the fighters they support to fight Shakur because he's boring, but we all know a lot of these fighters don't fancy their chances, whether it's Tank Davis, an African-American, Lomachenko, a white Eastern European, and Cepeda, a Mexican, is only stepping up to the plate because of the Saudi bag, basically. All this ban shit is not scaring no African-American fighters. Shakur was enough of an attraction that Bob Arum had him on at least 2 to 3 million per fight, minimum, and wanted to retain his services. So somebody wants to see him. And when he left Top Rank, Eddie Hearn snapped him up straight away. We could pretend it's all about boxing, but it's not. The whole notion that you could just pretend Shakur ain't there at 135. This ain't William Skull, bruh. Canelo could have not fought William Skull, and not one member of media or one boxing fan would have made a video or an article saying, why isn't Canelo fighting William Skull? And even Devin Haney. The only fight he's really moved excessively was the Ramirez fight. But okay, he's boring. But here's the thing. When Ryan put them hands on Devin before he got popped, and even after he got popped, look how that story trended. And it wasn't just because of Ryan, it was the scalp of Ryan beating a former undisputed champion at 135 and at the time current WBC 140-pound champ. Here's the thing though, if these Latin fighters and Oscar and Golden Boy had more confidence in their fighters beating these running African-American fighters, they wouldn't be crying about how they fight. They'd just be going in there collecting the big paydays and beating them up. That's the truth.
I have to reach in your mouth and grab your tongue and twist the lie from your tongue and slap you with the truth from this microphone.
You see, it's a risk-reward thing, right? They had no problem with Mexican and Latin fighters fighting Floyd. Career highest payday, possible pound-for-pound ranking, major bragging rights, the biggest scalp in boxing. They had no problems with that. fighting that runner. Floyd's lucky he cherry-picked Canelo when he was young, although Canelo had won world titles, but he was too young. And oh yeah, he ran away with a points decision, yeah. Mayweather schooled him without running. And this was Money Mayweather, not Pretty Boy Mayweather, with his brittle hands pumped up with cortisone injections. Now what people have to decide, is it just running that's bad for boxing? How about you selecting boxers that are just going to run into your punches all day? That's good for boxing, yeah? Or let's pretend that Canelo is great at cutting off the ring and that it's not a skill that should be considered in this debate. Just get rid of the runners. Bit simplistic for me. I'm not impressed with the boxing analysis, quite frankly.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
So what happened to David Adelaide versus TKV, the rematch? TKV and Adelaide fought in April. It was controversial, 6-round stoppage in Adelaide's favour, but the referee made a few mistakes when he called break. Controversial to say the least. The British Boxing Board of Control ordered a rematch, which was supposed to take place in August, and I'm guessing TKV will fight for the vacant strap, and I'm assuming Adelaide has vacated the British title. Adelaide, 28 years of age, 14 wins, 1 loss, 13 inside the distance. Hrgovic, 33 years of age, 18 wins, 1 loss, 14 inside the distance. I wasn't expecting this fight to be announced. It's unexpected. I would have thought, considering Adelaide was down on the scorecards against TKV, and this is domestic level, that you take the rematch, hopefully we'd see some improvements, and then move on to European and then fringe world level. But they're going straight to fringe world, and I'm assuming that's what Hrgovic is. The question now is, does David Adelaide have the skill set, more importantly the punch output, to do a similar job to what Daniel Dubois did to Hrgovic? Hrgovic hasn't stood out as a pro in no particular performance. He's had some good wins, but he hasn't stood out. David can bang, but at what level? Domestic, European, world level? Will he get to land that punch? Hrgovic does have some skills. He showed flashes of his skill against Joe Joyce. He also has a very good chin. So David relying on one punch to bang him over like he did Solomon Dacus, or the moody punch on the break he caught Jamie TKV with. Dunno. I think Adam Booth has got it all to do to get David ready for this fight. But it's not the worst fight to take. They might be catching the 33-year-old Hrgovic at the right time. Adelaide, 28 years of age.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Vladimir Klitschko. Talk of him returning to the ring has seemed to have dampened down. Have you spoken to him recently?
Yeah, I speak to Vladimir Klitschko a lot. I spoke to him as recent as 8-9 days ago. I think that he's waiting to see what Usyk is going to do. But I do know that Vladimir Klitschko has desire to get back in the ring before he closed the door on his career to box with Fury. He wants that fight.
Unfinished business for Vlad. Fury never granted him that rematch. That was in the contract when Fury beat Vlad. But I don't see Vlad getting that fight. I think Fury would come out if there was the opportunity to fight Usyk. But Usyk's beat him twice already. Why does he think the Saudis or anyone is going to pitch up money for that?
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
So Lawrence Okolie versus Kevin Lerena is added to the Alexander Usyk Daniel Dubois card on July the 19th. I'm not convinced that Lawrence Okolie is a heavyweight. And while I'm not going to predict Lerena to defeat him, I think he'll expose a few holes in Lawrence's heavyweight game. Okolie, he's accusing Dillian Whyte of ducking him. But then again, couldn't Richard Riakporhe accuse Lawrence of the same thing? Why isn't he calling out Richard Riakporhe and they just pick up where they left off before Lawrence got injured? Interesting fight in the undercard. Lewis Edmondson, British and Commonwealth light heavyweight champion, 11-0, 3 inside the distance, takes on Daniel Lapine from the Ukraine, 11-0 with 4 stoppages. It's going to be interesting to see how Louis deals with the 6'6" Ukrainian. Lewis Edmondson was supposed to fight Ezra Taylor in another battle of Queensberry unbeatens at 175. And so far, they're the only 2 confirmed fights on the undercard. Daniel Lapine trains with Alexander Usyk.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
So Boots not waiting around for the winner of Barrios versus Pacquiao or Norman Jr. versus Sasaki to unify. He's moving up to 154. According to Eddie Hearn, Boots has underwent testing, as Eddie put it. He was underperforming and is depleting himself by staying at 147. 27 years of age, 34-0, 30 knockouts. He's done all he can at welterweight. 2 titles, IBF and WBA. So what's he walking into when he moves up? 154 IBF, Mutazaliev, WBA. Jamal Charlo, somehow still interim champion. WBC, Sebastian Fundora, and WBO. Their strap is vacant. I think Xander Zayas is fighting for that one. But there should be no shortage of opportunities for Boots at 154. Rather than Turkey banning runners and all this gimmicky, corny crap that some people are getting behind, how about you put some of them resources into unifying the straps in weight classes like 154? And there's other divisions too. But we can do the gimmicky, corny crap like get rid of the runners. Of which, how you do that exactly? Somebody tell me. You know what this reminds me of? The announcement of the Super League. Oh, Dana White's coming here, gonna kill every promoter in boxing history. Just a total overreaction. Total overreaction. And I don't know what strap Virgil Ortiz has, and I don't really care. If Boots could walk straight into a Virgil Ortiz fight at 154, now that would be impressive.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Okay, so I was listening to Coach Malachi's podcast. It's pretty bad news for Richardson Hitchens. Only 1,600 tickets sold at the Hulu Theatre, which is basically a section of the MSG. Now, when Richardson won the title last year against the Australian, Liam Paro, they couldn't get a site fee for Liam Paro to defend in Australia. Eddie made this long-winded explanation, but basically Liam wasn't a draw over there. And obviously, Hitchens not a draw in New York. They held the fight in Puerto Rico. An Australian, a New Yorker in Puerto Rico. I don't know if Hitchens wanted to defend his title in New York and pitch the idea to Eddie, please let me have a homecoming fight, but he's not a draw. 7 knockouts in 19 fights. He's not a puncher. And before you guys say it, he's not a runner. He's a boxer. But when you look at his common opponents with the likes of Keyshawn Davis and Dalton Smith got rid of Jose Cepeda in good style, while Richardson laboured, although clearly outpointed Cepeda. Then you look at Lemos, the Argentinian. He nearly beat Hitchens. And then Keyshawn Davis brushed him aside in a couple of rounds. Then you got George Kambosos. 2021, he defeated Teofimo Lopez at 135. But since then, he didn't look good against Maxie Hughes. That was in America. He got beaten up by Loma in Australia and didn't look great to me against Jake Wiley in Australia. America just not interested in Kambosos and they're not interested in Richardson. Some people are saying that Eddie hasn't promoted the fight well, but aside from dragging him over to the UK, what can he really do with the guy? I don't know. Matchroom got Boots and it's doing good crowds across the pond. I think Eddie has to take some accountability with the opponent. George Kambosos in New York right now as a voluntary. I haven't went through the rankings to see who else was available, potentially. It's weird. They had the face-off the other day, Kambosos and Hitchens, and they did it without no host or no security, and they were reading questions on the cards to each other, and it was pretty civil. But yesterday, it went off because Richardson pulled out a bag and was challenging Kambosos to bet 50 grand on the outcome of the fight. Then Hitchens' trainer and Kambosos' manager got into it. And they got a little heated, but not enough to create a buzz that will sell any more tickets. Now, part of the reason I covered this is New York fighters. When I came up, we're talking about Shannon Briggs, Mike Tyson, Zab Judah, Mark Breland, Riddick Bowe, even Junior Jones, who was a lighter weight fighter, but he was exciting. We're always good to do some good numbers on tickets. This is where Hitchens was born. From amateur to pro. You can't do 2,000 tickets in your hometown, New York.
We don't throw gang signs in New York. Nah. We just be on some shit in New York. Yeah.
They brought Bill Haney there. Maybe Eddie invited him there to try and stir it up a little. And Bill made a few cameos here and there. Dead. The only thing that can save this fight now is the fight itself. Hitchens needs to either put on a clinic or we get a slugfest. A memorable slugfest. In this backlash for American boxing for what happened in Times Square, has America, or maybe just the East Coast, really fell out of love with boxing? And fair enough, Eddie Hearn has to take some responsibility, and I said that already with the choice of opponent George Kambosos. And even if Hitchens is not a big draw, the gate is something that Eddie has to take accountability for. But let's not forget, George Kambosos is being co-promoted by Eddie Hearn in conjunction with Lou DiBella, who is New York, Brooklyn, who's either been on the broadcasting side of the business or promotional side of the business, I'm going to say from deep into the 90s. Are you telling me between Lou DiBella and Hitchens, two New Yorkers, two dudes from Brooklyn, Flatbush, they can't get more than 3,000 people into the event? You telling me this is Lou DiBella's hometown? I'm not throwing the liability on Lou DiBella. I'm asking the question. Is he just totally irrelevant right now? Or this is how the East Coast, I'm not going to say the whole of America, is this how New York, the East Coast, is responding to boxing right now? Just not interested? I don't think it's just down to Hitchens not being a knockout puncher. I don't think it's down to that. Because you would have just thought a young Brooklynite kid from Flatbush, Lou DiBella's from Flatbush, who's hung with Tank, Shakur, would be more connected with a younger demographic. He talks smack, Richardson Hitchens, and proudly says, yeah, I'm a New York fighter who talks smack. So what's going wrong? It's not just down to him not scoring knockouts. Anyone who believes that, that's your take. It's just not down to that. The man's a world champion. You've got to get at least 3,000-4,000 people in there. At least. If he was still at Mayweather Promotions with the PBC, when shit was popping over there at the Barclays Center, this fight would do more numbers than that. I'm telling you that now. Boxing has just become very unpopular there. It'd be interesting to see what Shakur Stevenson and Edgar Berlanga do in Queens in a couple of weeks' time. I mean, they draw a bigger gate than this. But let's see what pay-per-view numbers they do in America. I think in this climate, 100K would be a success.
Boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.